Hey, welcome back to Calliope Music Reviews. My name is Colin, and this is the Music Canon. Today we have a bit of a dark one with the fifth studio release from singer, songwriter, record producer, YouTuber, and philosopher Ethel Cain and her new EP, Perverts. Now, a name like that can't help but pique my interest in an artist who's already been quite disruptive in the indie scene. Ethel Cain has already proven to be an artist who can embrace moody atmospheres and slow progressions, blowing into the mainstream with 2022's mix of dreamy pop bops and apocalyptic Christian ballads on Preacher's Daughter. Perverts, on the other hand, is an even darker, slower, and cataclysmic release, sulking in a cavernous ambiance and these large, lethargic drones. The sound is such a slow burn of dramatic elements, from scratchy strings to dissonant pianos and a hauntingly epic electric guitar heard throughout the record. The progressions, which are all quite lengthy, slowly fluctuate in these gentle but noise-ridden oscillations. These movements are then accompanied by swirling industrial textures like on the track House of Psychotic Woman or ethereal keys on ETN, or just straight noise on Vacillator and Onanist. All of this makes for a pretty drawn out but immersive darkness that sucks you into the narrative that Ethel is building throughout the hour-and-a-half runtime. The narrative is kind of complex and is weaved into this spiritual philosophy that, at least in my opinion, can be broken down into sin and desire. The record begins by describing the social negativity towards masturbation and self-gratification on the first two tracks, Perverts and Punish. It then shifts to fully embracing the pleasures of masturbation on the track Onanist, which literally translates to masturbator. Now, this pleasure does not solve the narrator's problems at all, but kind of just places them into this cycle where they have to deal with the highs and lows of addiction. Now, I want to point out that the narrative and Ethel's philosophy here kind of loosely follows the writings of French philosopher Jean Baudrillard. I'm probably butchering that name, but his 1981 publication called Simulacra and Simulation. Ethel explores John's writings most specifically on the sixth track, Poldrone, as she adds her own ideology through the 12 pillars of this simulacra, which is kind of a step-by-step process for an individual to seek out pleasure, or pleasure is personified as the ring, and ultimately reach the utopia of pleasure, which is called the divine theater. While the divine theater is the ultimate destination here, it's not necessarily a good thing because it kind of just results in this addiction where someone is constantly searching for euphoria. And Ethel compares this to the properties of masturbation and drugs. And ultimately, this process leads to an individual's degradation as they continuously search for this unattainable pleasure. Now, the sixth track, Poldrone, does a really good job at communicating this degrading journey as the caustic strings and the drone of strings constantly pull and rip throughout its 15-minute runtime. Ethel uses this process as a means to be closer to a higher power or God, and she uses a lot of evangelical Christian imagery, much like her debut, Preacher's Daughter, to describe this ultimately failed journey towards enlightenment. Of course, this is just my interpretation of the lyrics. There are just too many literary, ideological, and art-related references throughout the album to cover in just one review, so I highly encourage you to do your own research and gain a perspective on it of your own. I know there are different ways that you can interpret this, and this is just the way that I'm choosing to interpret it. Anyways, I do think that the ideological parts of this album complement its sound by creating this contrast between gloomy and elongated passages and a devotion to this unreachable enlightenment. However, while these concepts work well in context, I can't help but feel the pressure of such elongated and sedate movements that unfortunately make the record drag a bit through its very long runtime, especially for an EP. Of Of course, I do think there are a lot more positives than negatives on this album. For one, I love the all-encompassing reverberations of droning instruments, especially the charging climax on Punish and the Midwest emo guitar licks on Amber Waves. Along with its perverse concepts, this EP is a devastating listen, but in a good way. It communicates itself pretty well, and that's a sign of a solid record. So in the end, I think Perverts, the album that is a quality listen. So I'm going to give it a score of a 3 out of 5. And just for bookkeeping, I do rate EPs and mixtapes out of 5 rather than the usual 10 for an LP or a long play. And that's just because EPs and mixtapes are usually shorter in length and less cohesive projects than LPs. Now, I do know that this EP is much longer than most LPs, but I just want to stay consistent with how I rate different projects on this channel. I will still give you my favorite tracks though, which are Punish, Onanist, and Amber Waves. And alright, that'll do it for this quick little EP review. I do hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I encourage you to form your own opinion on the record and let me know what you think in the comments. Also, feel free to suggest any other records or artists you'd like me to cover in the future. And with that, this has been Ethel Cain, the Music Canon, and I will see you in the next one.